At the end of a 14-hour shift, my supervisor tossed a mop at me and said loudly, "Before you leave, princess, make sure the floors are shining. Maybe if you worked harder, you'd be more than just a spare body." I smiled, nodded, and cleaned one perfect square foot of tile before clocking out. The store manager had to finish the rest alone, and by the end of the night, my resignation letter was the least of their problems. I work, or used to work, at a grocery store in Muncie, Indiana. Not a fancy chain. One of those medium-sized stores where half the signs are sun-faded and there's always a leaky freezer somewhere. It was the kind of place where if you stayed more than 6 months, they started treating you like furniture. I stayed 2 years. It wasn't great, but I needed it. I had bills, a brother who can't work, and not many options in town. I showed up on time, stayed late when asked, worked through my breaks sometimes. I was never loud, never caused trouble. Just kept my head down. For most of those 2 years, my manager was Dan. He was all right. He didn't notice much, but he didn't make life harder either. But Valerie, my shift supervisor? That woman made hell feel like a break room. Valerie had been there for over a decade, and she acted like the building would fall without her. She talked to everyone like they were stupid. Said things like, "That's not how I would do it," or, "If you want a paycheck, act like it." The kind of woman who smiled while she cut your hours. When corporate sent out a memo about cost-cutting, Valerie treated it like a challenge. She started making us do double the work to show initiative. She'd have 2 people unload the entire shipment instead of 4. She stopped letting people clock in early, even if they were already doing work. If anyone complained, she'd threaten to write them up or have a talk with Dan. People started quitting. Good people. People with families and kids. Valerie didn't care. She just shrugged and told the rest of us we should be grateful. Then she set her sights on me. First, she cut my hours. Said I wasn't energetic enough on the floor. Then she started nitpicking everything. I'd finish stocking early and she'd ask why I wasn't moving with urgency. She started assigning me all the closing work, trash, spills, pallet breaks, right after long shifts. When I'd say I needed to clock out, she'd guilt me with team spirit talk. One time, I stayed 2 extra hours to clean up a soda spill that had leaked under a cooler. When I finished, she didn't say thanks. Just pointed at another aisle and said, "While you're down there, but the real moment?" That was Tuesday. I'll never forget it. I came in at 6 a.m. for a truck unload. The truck was late, as usual, but Valerie made us stay on the clock anyway. That meant I was on my feet for 14 hours with one 15-minute break and a sandwich I barely finished. I stocked every aisle, helped a customer find her lost kid, and cleaned up after some guy puked near the rotisserie chickens. At 8 p.m., my hands were shaking. My back was killing me. I'd just finished wiping down the dairy cooler when I turned to leave. Then I heard her voice. "Hey, princess." I stopped. Turned around. She was standing there, arms crossed, holding a mop. And smiling. "Before you leave, make sure the floors are shining." She tossed the mop at me like I was some damn dog. Maybe if you worked harder, you'd be more than just a spare body. A few coworkers heard it. One of them actually flinched. I picked up the mop. I smiled. Said, "Of course." I walked to the middle of the produce section and mopped a single square. One perfect square of tile. I made it shine like a mirror. Then I leaned the mop against the apple bin. Clocked out. Didn't say a word. Went home. Sat in my car for 10 minutes in silence. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I didn't go in. I didn't call, didn't text. I wasn't sick. I wasn't running late. I was done. I spent that morning writing a resignation letter. Not one of those polite, fake thank you ones either. I wrote it plain and honest. I listed names. I wrote down dates. I detailed how Valerie had been pushing people out on purpose, how she'd made jokes about getting rid of the slow ones, and how she faked records to make it look like she was saving payroll. I even attached screenshots from our group chat, where she bragged about cutting hours to break the lazy ones. Then I sent it, not just to Dan, but to the regional office, corporate HR, and the ethics hotline. After that, I went silent. No contact. No social media updates. Nothing. I found out what happened next from Jenna, a cashier who'd been on her last straw too. Apparently, Dan didn't even know I had quit until 2 hours into my shift. Valerie told him I stormed off crying, which was a lie. But when he called my phone and it went straight to voicemail, she must have panicked. That's when he walked to the back room and found the resignation letter printed and taped to his locker. Jenna said it was like a bomb went off. Dan called HR right away. Then corporate. Valerie kept saying it was all a misunderstanding, but they started pulling footage from the store cameras and checking time logs. When they asked her why she had employees staying late but not clocking in until their scheduled time, she stammered. When they asked her why she marked floors as cleaned when she had done them herself hours later, there were questions she couldn't talk her way out of. But that wasn't the worst of it. The district manager showed up. Not just to ask questions, but to investigate. He showed up during Valerie's shift and asked every remaining employee to write statements. Jenna told me one of the stalkers handed in a copy of a memo Valerie made them sign weeks ago, saying they'd volunteered to stay late without compensation in the spirit of teamwork. It had her name on it. She made up a fake policy. Put it in writing. That's when it started unraveling. The next day, 2 more people quit. Dan was put on leave pending an investigation. And Valerie? She was locked in the office all day. By Friday, the store was in chaos. No closers. No truck crew. Customers walking out. Rotten milk on the shelves. And Valerie was still there. Still trying to mop the damn floors. By the end of that week, Muncie's favorite little grocery store was falling apart. Word started spreading through town. Not just whispers between employees, but customers, neighbors, even vendors. One of the bakery drivers came in on Saturday and found the delivery door locked, no one to sign. The store missed the entire order. That's when he called his boss, who called corporate. That same day, Jenna sent me a photo from the break room bulletin board. It showed a printed sign, written in Valerie's handwriting, "All staff, until further notice, we are all responsible for closing duties. Let's show corporate what real teamwork looks like." People laughed. Then they quit. Jenna told me 4 more workers walked that weekend, including Tyler, who had been there longer than me. That left Valerie with 3 part-timers, 1 scared teenager on her second day, and herself. Corporate sent a team the following Monday. Not just HR. Loss prevention. Turns out Valerie had been manipulating clock-in times for over a year. She was logging people out early and claiming they forgot. She was writing herself in for hours she didn't work. She'd been skimming time, and when it all got dragged into the open, they brought her into the back office for hours. Dan? He didn't come back. A week later, Jenna texted me, Dan took early retirement. Didn't even clean out his locker. But the twist I didn't expect? Valerie wasn't fired. Not yet. They demoted her. Moved her to night shift stock. No title. No supervisor key. Just a black apron like the rest of us. And they brought in a new manager from Fort Wayne. A guy who'd never even met her. He made her reapply for her own schedule. And he started talking to people like human beings. By the second week, Jenna said Valerie had started showing up late. She looked tired. Her hair was different. Like she'd stopped trying. And that's when the final twist hit her. HR emailed everyone copies of their updated timesheets. They were offering back pay. Anyone who could prove they'd been forced to work off the clock? They got checks. Mine was over $800. Jenna's was over $1,000. They made Valerie personally sign off on the payout letters. She had to sit there, face each worker, and initial every form. She couldn't speak. Couldn't argue. She just signed. And signed. I should have felt satisfied right then. Checks were going out. Valerie had lost her power. The store was paying for what it ignored. I should have let it go. But I didn't. Because even after all that, Valerie still had a job. Still walked into that store like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't humiliated people, destroyed morale, and tried to erase me like I didn't matter. I couldn't stand the thought of her still getting a paycheck. So I took it one step further. I made a call. There's a guy I went to high school with, Rob. He works in town now, small-time local news, but always hungry for a headline. I told him everything. Showed him the screenshots. Sent him a copy of the resignation letter. Gave him phone numbers for former employees willing to talk. The story ran a week later, grocery store under fire for labor violations and hostile work environment. They didn't use names. But everyone in Muncie knew. The article mentioned forced unpaid labor, fake policies, and abuse of authority by a veteran supervisor. It quoted 2 ex-employees anonymously, one of them was me. The store's Facebook page lit up. Reviews dropped. People started shopping at the Kroger across town. It got so bad, corporate made the store shut down for a deep restructure. They posted job listings for new supervisors. Valerie didn't reapply. She just vanished. Someone said they saw her working at a gas station off Highway 32. I don't know if that's true, and I didn't care to check. I was done. I took the back pay and used it to get ahead on rent. Put some in my brother's account. Took a week off from job hunting to breathe. But here's the truth. I stayed too long. I let her talk down to me for months. I should have spoken up earlier. Should have defended myself, not just waited until I snapped. I thought keeping quiet made me strong. It didn't. So yeah, I got my revenge. But it came with a price. I'll never let someone like her get that far again. And I'll never mop another damn floor unless it's mine.